Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette, and I'm your host. Today, I have a very special guest. She is Dr. Yasmilde Gonzalez, and she's a healer and neuroscientist, founder and co-owner of EQUALLIBRIUM. So welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Swanette. This was a gorgeous, beautiful invitation. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so this is really interesting that on the one hand, you are a scientist and then you are a healer. So this for many people doesn't go together, but as I have read through our interview form, I'm really curious to tell also, or let the audience also know how this comes together and a little bit of your story, how you started being a scientist, but then there were these special moments and the tipping points, or one special tipping point that brought you to where you are now. So can you tell our audience a little bit of your story and what is all this about?
Sure. So I remember, since I was very, very young, I was inspired by anything that I could do to help society at large, to be engaged in anything that was happening in my country at the time. I'm Cuban, by the way. And when I was around 13, there was this huge scientific movement in the country. The government was, investing a lot in these huge investigative research centers. And I got so inspired by that I was convinced that becoming a scientist could be the way that I could be, right front and center in the future development of my country. And so I decided then and there, I was 13, and I decided to go into this grueling training process to get into one of the most specialized high schools in the country. And so that's how I got my first degree in science. Right? That took me through a journey where I accumulated 4 scientific degrees. The last one I got here in Canada after I emigrated, and it was a PhD, a doctorate in neuroscience. And I spent the last 15 years of my scientific career in that field. At the moment that I left the field, I have already been the research manager of a research laboratory in the Faculty of Medicine in Ottawa, here in Canada, and working on subjects that were related to brain development, Parkinson's, and stroke. So pretty active, and from that point of view, I made it, right? I actually got pretty entangled in that field. The thing is that from the outside, all of those things look great, right? But because what I was doing wasn't really in alignment with that intense desire of helping humanity, it looked like a very long process and a detached process, right? And so I wasn't super happy with what I'm doing from that point of view. So parallel to that story in science, a lot happened in my life. I lost my mother to cancer when I was shy of 30. I decided to emigrate from Cuba to Canada, and I did that on circumstances that I arrived in Canada with very little money, and I knew no one. I left absolutely everything behind. My career in Cuba, my family, my friends, absolutely everything. I didn't know absolutely anybody in Canada. So that was a bit of a pickle. Also, I actually managed to have 3 amazing relationships, marriages that ended up in divorce And so on top of that, I found myself in a place where I had been suffering from chronic illness from many years, 6 to 10 years, in depending on which one you would look at. And depression settled in. Right? And so I was in a very dark place, feeling extremely broken when I was about 44. And there was this time around my third divorce, this day that I said, you know what, I'm done. I am done suffering and being unhappy. I am done with being sick. I am done with living on this hole. And up to that moment, conventional medicine hadn't been able to help me. Many of the conditions that I had are completely related to stress levels and all those things. And so the answer of my MD all the time could be, okay, when are you slowing down a little bit? Right? And I didn't think at the time that I could. So it was an impossible situation kind of thing. And I said, there has to be something that I can do that I haven't even tried. And I have realized since then that when we have that kind of breakthrough, when you say, okay, something needs to happen, tell me what it is and I'll do it, the universe starts giving you alternatives. Right away, things start showing up. And without going into detail, so we're talking a week here, I was actually discovered by energy. A person saw me and said, you know what, you're doing this thing. I'll train you for free. That's how I started. I discovered energy healing. And I went at the speed of light through training in several modalities of energy healing. And something that also happened there was that I learned to meditate. And I started a very, very steady meditation practice. All of that changed my life. I went through, my focus then was to heal, is to feel whole. And surprisingly for me, at some point I stumbled into the realization that I had always been a healer. Even when I was 5, I have very distinct memories of things that I was doing to help my parents, my clients, my siblings, my friends, my siblings. And I understood that that was the core of who I was. Right? So, and at that point, I had already been dabbling into healing modalities and practices with friends and family. And it became so clear to me that that was the way that I was going to help humanity. That the way we do that, I actually understood one day that the best gift I could give the world was being myself, my true self, in a whole state, and that helping other people do the same, that was how I could contribute to the betterment of humanity. And at that point, it was a no-brainer. It was very clear to me that I needed to leave my academia career behind and be a healer full-time. And notice that I said academia, not science, because once a scientist, always a scientist. And I think that's what shocks people the most when they hear the story. And how can you jump from science to esoteric stuff, right? But in reality, there is actually not such a divorce between what I was doing, what I'm doing now. There is a staggering amount of evidence, a lot of science behind what I do nowadays. And I used to tell people, just quantum physics has been around for 100 years, over 100 years. And that explains pretty much everything that I experienced. Mind you, I didn't get to where I am today because what I thought about it. I did it because I opened up myself to whatever it could be. Right? So it wasn't through science that I got to where I'm at. But still, there is a lot of scientific evidence behind what I do. And that's it. Here we are today.
Yeah, this is a great story. And I totally resonate with that, because looking at myself, I started in medicine, and I'm also an engineer in chemical environmental technology. So I'm coming from science and now also working with energies. And for me, it's the same process to see, okay, I had a kind of conventional view to science and how reality looks like. And now it was more, like you said, now opening up to the other kind of science that already have evidence. And so for me, the question is, did you had a kind of a mindset shift during this process, like seeing the world, for example, more as a material world, and now seeing it more like from the quantum world or worldview, or like the energy worldview? So has there been a change of a mind shift?
Well, most definitely, right? The shift happened. And I call that a paradigm shift. Like when you see the world specifically, shifting from seeing the world in a Newtonian way, linear thinking, reasoning, and those things that we're very familiar with, into a quantum paradigm when you see everything coming through you, right? Like you are on the driving seat of whatever happens. That shift happened. But I think at the beginning, it wasn't through a mental shift that I got to where I was. I think what happened was, and I see this happening with my clients all the time as well. I think what happened was that when I healed my human, when I went through the process of understanding how I had landed on that hole that I had been living for a little bit, when it happened, what emerged out of that was my real self. It was a process of becoming. It wasn't a process of changing minds. What happened though was that once I felt so differently, then I looked back and I said, oh, that was happening. I could hear other people describe this kind of processes and said, okay, now I understand what happened to me. But it was a becoming process. And all of a sudden, I found myself being something different. So, or I could say the real me. And yes, it had entitled a mental shift, but I didn't even notice.
Okay. So you said that there was kind of a tipping moment when this all started, and you felt, okay, now I have to change myself. Can you go a little bit deeper into that, how this happened to you?
Yes, it's not, and you know what, it's interesting because I have colleagues and friends that I could be discussing this with, and they could go into the why. Why is this happening to me? Why is this? And I would say, yeah, I don't ask why. And they could ask me, how come? Right? You're not interested in it? And I say, yeah, I'll tell you what. I spent 30 years of my life living in my head, going through the rational way of doing things. And that landed me in a very ugly place. Because of that, I was already primed not to judge or criticize or superanalyze the process I was going through. I was just living it. I was just in the process, enjoying how I started coming out from a mostly negative mental space into a optimistic, hopeful, because that was the first thing that happened, right? A hopeful space where I started discovering the benefits of just be here, just breathe, just imagine, what do I want? That was a very surprising part of the process for me, because in Cuba growing up, we were not meant to want anything. We were meant to do stuff, but not want something. And so the concept of dreaming, of visioning, of wanting, that was totally foreign to me. So that was actually the first thing that happened. How do I bring about that healthy version of me that I want, that happy? This is this moment that I said, you know what? Because I was a very functional, depressed person. Even when I was depressed, people would call me the rainbow of my lab. And from the facade out, I was the happiest person alive. And there was this moment when I said, my God, I want that smile to be genuine, to come from a place that is, happy inside of me. Not because I want to make people happy, because I'm genuinely happy. And that was my focus for a while. Right? It's just to become happy. Look, what does that take? What does that mean? How does that feel? And that brought into my life, into my experience, a lot of things, including meditation. Meditation was a game changer. It was actually a way where intuitively I was guided through my own healing process. I discovered things about my childhood that I thought I had healed, and they were still there. Decisions that I made through the times, those years, I learned just because I kept doing those practices, right? And I was becoming something else. My energy was changing. And I discovered that I had it in me to forgive myself for the things that I have gone through with my relationships, forgive them, and be in such a place that I could have a very friendly conversation with any of my exes. I was happy with what had happened. It was at this point of time that one of them asked me, I don't understand, how can you speak about these things like this? And I look at him, I said, well, because I understood that I needed to go through what we went through together to be in the place I am today. And I'm very happy with that space. So all of that happened. It was a deep process of healing until the moment came that I realized that I had been helping people do that my whole life. I just hadn't done it with me. And that's when it landed. Okay, I've always been a healer. This is what I do intuitively. Right now, I know even better because I've lived it. I know what it takes. I know what the whole thing feels, right? So because I did all of that out of a space of being and not of thinking, then it's easy for me to guide people through, bring people to that space so that they can do the same and learn, discover what it is to love yourself, whatever you're at, whatever happens. It's a process. We're here to learn. So yeah, I hope I answered. I think I got derailed there somewhere.
Yeah, I totally got it. I thought it was like just really one moment, like when you said the energy healing came to you, or like a moment in a divorce process or something. But what I hear is like it was really a process of healing yourself, of awakening more and more, and living through all this, also reviewing what has been the past, what were the teachings and the learnings out of that. So it was not just one moment, but it was more like a process in different steps. Yeah,
exactly. When the healing mentor came to me, when this person that looked at me and I said, but you've been doing this thing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I knew nothing about energy healing, by the way. absolutely nothing, never even heard about it. And when she said that, you know, if you trust me, I will train you because the energy is calling you and not the other way around. Right? So I will guide you through this process of your game. At that point, I was so hurt. I was so vulnerable in that moment that felt like a salve to my soul, right? It's like, okay, there is this person saying that the universe is looking at me. That felt almost incredible at the time. So I just trusted. I said, okay, I'll follow the, you know how in movies they say, follow the money. I actually follow the love. Whatever I was feeling that was being inspired of me or was being given to me, I followed that just blindly. Even I didn't overanalyze it. I didn't care. Why is this being happening to me? Why, like I lived in awe for a very long time during that period, where I could barely believe what was happening to me, but I was game because I've had asked for alternatives. How is this going to happen? And these have shown up to my door to, you know, put it somehow. So yes, I started absorbing everything like a sponge, and that started giving me such a happy feeling. I think, well, the day that I finished the first training lesson on Reiki, which is how I started, that same day I went out of that lesson and gave 2 of my best friends a treatment. No, I'm not overguessing. I was just following the love, the happy. This is making me happy, I'll do it. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know. And I think that helped me buckets, not only through that process, but right after. Because everything I do in my practice, I tell people, listen, this is not me doing this. I park my human. Okay, I'm following 100% is an intuitive process. And whatever you're hearing today is because you need to. I totally believe that. It's not me pushing anything here. You don't need to say you're agree. You don't need to tell me I'm the best in the world. This is not about me. This is not about me. This is about you. And I learned that through my own process, through my own healing.
Yeah, so you just started to tell a little bit what were the tools you have used for your own process, like Reiki. So go a little bit deeper into that. What are the methods or tools or techniques, despite you are really intuitive in what you do in your work? What are the other tools you're using? Yeah.
Yes, so the amazing lady that introduced me to here is a Reiki master teacher. And I went through the first 3 levels of Reiki in like I said, the speed of light. I did all that in less than 8 months or something like that. And I started on the 4th. Parallel to that, I started following other people, like taking other trainings. I did, you know, a mental decluttering, a belief decluttering kind of process with Christy Marie Sheldon. I took I was accredited by Deborah King on her life force energy healing technique. I got a training with Jeffrey Allen, which has a program that is called Duality, because then those were the first times that I started hearing quantum and you know, alternatives and working with your own energy kind of thing. Then I got trained also with Donna Eden, that created the Eden method, how she calls it today, but originally was energy medicine, and she has a book, pretty powerful book on it. All of those things, and then the meditation thing, I started with Deborah King. She taught me, but then I got training with Emily Fletcher. She's huge. She has a Z method academy in the States. I did a training with Vishen Lakiani. He's the leader of Mind Valley. I did a training with Michael J. Beckwith. All of these people are pretty, connected spiritual leaders, people that have experienced their own journey in different ways. And again, being the scientist, right? I open myself up to everything that could come to me, different perspectives, different origins of it. And at the same time that all of that was happening, like I said, immediately started working with people. Immediately. I was, at that point, there weren't clients, right? Like it was friends and colleagues. At the lab, I found myself giving treatments while I was in the lab to my colleagues whenever they had anything going on. But through my meditation practice, I started getting these, I don't even know how to call it, well, messages, let's put it that way. But they could come to me in very different ways. And at the beginning, these messages that I'm referring to specifically, they were showing me symbols. And I don't know how familiar with Reiki you are and your audience, but Reiki works with symbols as well. It's the way the practitioner has to establish an intention, to regulate the intensity of the energy they're working with and those things, right? So I thought, and actually my mentor, that it's a pretty good, intuitive psychic, she told me, I see you teaching these things. I see you getting your own thing. At the time I could hear these things as, yeah, okay. That meant nothing to me. But then I started getting these symbols in many different circumstances. Like one of them came while I was given an in-person hands-on treatment. Another one came to me in the weirdest way possible. I was just walking from my car park to my laboratory and even about to cross the street, by the way. And I got this image in front of me. It was as if I was in two places at the same time. Like I'm in person, I'm walking, and in the image, I'm like in a movie. I'm acting in a movie. It was the weirdest thing. I remember doing this because I couldn't believe I had this image in front of me that wouldn't go away, right? So that way, I got another of the symbols. I got another one doing a long distance healing. I got another one walking on the streets of Cuba. And I remember saying, I was on vacation there, August, 40 degrees on your head. And I remember saying, oh, I have a symbol that feels like it has to do with heat. Maybe I can get one that has to do with cold so that I can, refresh myself here. And immediately I saw the symbol in front of me. And then the last one I got during an attunement ceremony in one of the last energy Reiki attunement ceremonies. And it was as if I was in two ceremonies at the same time. She was doing whatever she was doing on me, and I could see spirit guides of mine doing something else on me, and that I saw the last symbol, right? I knew nothing of what was happening. And all of a sudden, I started rejecting the Reiki symbols. I couldn't use them anymore. And when I asked, okay, what was happening? Right? What's the process here? And the answer I got was, well, Reiki was the training wheels for you, but you don't need that anymore. And I said, okay, but what's the difference then between the symbols that I've been using and these ones that you're giving me? If symbols is not the answer, why are you giving me stuff? And then the answer to that was, well, those were for the practitioner. These ones are representative of energy vibrations that you need to work with. It's energy. It's not for you. It's through you. Right? And again, I've been extremely, how do you call that? Fortunate on the mentors that I've had, because my mentor at the time, that is a Reiki practitioner, she totally understood what was happening. She supported me through the whole process. And at some point, when I understood through another meditative experience that what I was being given was more than random symbols, it was actually a system, I asked her help to figure what that was. And she was game, the guinea pig of the whole experience. To fast forward that at the full speed, what started that way is today what I know as a 10th energy system in our energy field. I call it the elementals. It has 5 components, and I have access to it when I work with a person. I see what's happening with each of the components and what that means in terms of the patterns of emotions, of thoughts, of behavior of that person. It's a little bit of showing to me where are the blind spots in that person process and how that has impacted their energy field. All of that to tell you, today, I am, as a practitioner, a mix of all of that, applying the things that have come directly to me to do what I do. So it's very intuitive. I don't have 2 sessions that look the same, because then I've picked up sound healing techniques on the way to enrich that, quantum healing techniques. So whatever comes through me to the person that is in front of me is what's needed in that moment. I don't have a fixed protocol. It's actually guided 100%.
Yeah, wow, this is so amazing. And I totally can recommend also all the teachers you just told that are also all the courses in Mind Valley. I've been with most of them as well, so I really can recommend them. Go there and figure out if you are from now listening to that, if something resonates with you, and start learning about this as well. And so you said you have been through this process, of course, learning special techniques, and then it was like intuitively more and more own symbols came together, and so you created your own method that is also enriched with all the other tools that you already learned, so to say. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you give me an example how such a session would look like? If I would come to you and at this moment you know nothing about me, how would such a session start? What would you do? How could you figure out what is wrong with me? What needs to be healed, so that we get an idea how we could learn about this?
So the first session that I would give anybody that come to me is the one based on that 10th system. And the reason why I call it the 10th system, by the way, is because 9 of them have already been described, published, and worked with, most of them by Donna Eden. Right? And she explains how the 9 systems work. I know I have found references to the components of this system in absolutely every ancient culture, shamanic practice out there. But I had never found reference to anyone working with it in the person. So because of that is what I called it the 10th system. Is because I don't have reference of it anywhere. For some reason, the universe saw fit bring it through me. I don't know completely why yet, but I guess we'll find out eventually. So that first session, which I call a first energy assessment, is where I tap into the general state of your energy field. So first of all, are you grounded? Like, are you actually, is your energy field connected to the earth? Are you open to the universe? Like, what's happening with that connection on the top? And what's happening with the heart line, which is the whole center channel of your energy field? Right? That has impact in absolutely everything that you do, the way you feel, the way you think, and all of that. And once and you know that the saying, right, that everybody's different. I know this for a fact, because even if the sequence of things that I do is similar in that specific first assessment, is the same for everybody. I have yet to see the same in two people. Right? Like it's mind blowing. So I'm shown that, and I know that has an implication on how the person feels, what the person says or does, right? That's the first part. And then I go and check what is the appearance of each of the components in the symbolic way. So I have this symbol that I know is how they should look like. But when I tap into your energy field, you will show me the variation of that you have in yours. And I know now, I didn't at the beginning. Remember, I was just doing stuff. I discovered things on the way. But what I've discovered is that we are actually born with the full-blown, beautiful components. Like the symbol is, beautiful in newborns, most of them. But with time, with your human experiences, the imprints that you get, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, that starts changing that symbol in you. And I keep saying symbol, right? But it's an energy frequency. It's just that right before I look, I actually interact with your energy field to tell it how is it that I see the frequency. This is the symbol for this frequency. This is the symbol for the other one, right? And when I see something happening in your energy field, I know then now that we have the same language. It's like I'm giving it the code. Okay, this is the code we'll use, right? So that you can show me. And so I start looking at them one at a time. And based on, at that point, I just take notes. During that point, you're just sitting and doing whatever it is. I don't ask you to relax or anything like that. Actually, sometimes I ask the opposite. Just go at it. And all of the things that you think about, the things that are happening in your life, and all of that. And so during that period of time, I just take notes of everything I see. How is the symbol looking, and with each one of those. And after I see that, then I channel that frequency through me and into you. And I see the full-blown symbol form around the one you have. And it is a bit like an energetic conversation gets established. It's almost as if I can perceive that what I channel through is telling you at that level of frequency is, this is the potential. This is where you could be. How much of a change happens in the following 4 to 6 months depends on how open you are to it, how willing you are to go the distance and discover what does it take to get there. Right? But then I see that happen. Sometimes some minor changes happen in whatever you already have, but usually minor, because this system is cumulative. It's actually responding to those patterns, and a pattern doesn't change in a half hour, right? So that's what happened with every symbol, and all of that, you're just sitting and eyes closed, right? The last part of that session is then that conversation. I revealed to you absolutely everything I saw. without interpretation. Chances are that at some point or several points during that conversation, you'll hear me say, you know, I've never seen this before. I have no idea what it means. And then when I say that or do that, then an idea is put in my head. And I then, you know, share that with you. And it is a two-way conversation. So at the end, you end up with a very, very clear idea of what is it that you have actually been feeling, doing, thinking that you didn't realize until that moment. And a lot of times it comes with a center, you know, a core belief. And again, this is the beginning of a journey with me. Because of that, if that core belief is revealed, is the first one we have to work on. It's the one that is probably on the way of a big change so that you can keep going.
What are these kind of core beliefs, for example? What could be?
Yes, for some people, for example, is a variation of I'm not safe. It's not safe to trust. It's not safe to feel. It's not safe to do these kind of things. I need to hide. For some other people, it's a variation of I need to be a specific way. And that would imply I will ignore everything that is not like that in me. I will suppress it, ignore it, you know, move, hide from it, however it is. So variations of that. Those are examples, but there are others that are very, very specific to each person, right? And most of the time I don't remember, by the way, because I'm not consciously involved in what's happening, right? Hence the notes, so that, and they get all of it, like the notes, the recording to the conversation and all of it, so that they can, you know, tap into at some other time. Because I always tell them that is the reason we're recording is twice. So one is because as humans, we tend to get trapped into the first thing we need to figure out. What could this be related? And even if you're here listening, you're not hearing what I'm saying. So if you listen to the recording, you might find things that you didn't realize the first time, right? The second reason is because and you probably know this, any energy intervention, especially when it is at that scale, takes up to 72 hours to get fully integrated, which means things are changing, right? In you. Because of that, the person that is going to be listening to it a week down the line is not the same that is listening right there. And today you may think this is related to X. And a week from today, listen to it and say, oh my God, I was so off. I realize now that no, that had nothing to do with that. It's this other thing, right? So that transformation needs to happen to fully integrate for you to understand the whole process.
Yeah, wow. So what I often hear is also from my clients, all these very deep blockages like I'm not good enough. So I'm not enough in variations of that. And yeah, of course, all about, you know, I'm not safe. The earth is not a safe place. And seeing this as a starting point, as soon as you release them, then you open up for a development process. And of course, other beliefs that are still there will come up. I see it often like a kind of an onion. Yeah? You start with a first layer and then you can see the next one and the next one and the next one. So it's like going deeper into the self of the person and figuring out what is the potential of them if they really release all of that. And you said it's a process of months to go through it. Yeah.
Yes, it is. At some point during my practice, and I remember instantly when you said that, I very clearly, I remember this client that I had very beginning of what I was doing. When we were in the third session, one-on-one, something came up that was really, really, pivotal. And she then asked me, okay, how come that didn't come up before in the previous sessions, right? And what I realized is that it didn't because you weren't ready to deal with it. You weren't ready to, go through the process of healing that. The other things were more urgent and more basic. So now we can do it, right? But eventually, what I was guided to do was to create a program. And I laughed because the first people that came into the program came with this speech. Listen, I know I have to put a program together. I know it's about X, Y, and Z. I have no idea what's going to happen in each of the sessions. So if you're game, let's discover it together, right? And that program has evolved quite a bit in the last 2 years. Over 40 people have already gone through it. Therefore, I've learned buckets of what needed to happen. I actually discovered after the program had one or two rounds, what was it that it was doing? What kind of transformation? Because I discovered through those people that were going through it, right? What's the change? What are you discovering? Because I did it fully guided. Right? I didn't put it together in my head. And it keeps evolving, by the way. So I discover a lot of things that have to come together. What's the sequence, right? What's the basic sequence of events that have to happen for you to actually go through a long, lifelong transformation? And also discover that what the program creates on top of the infrastructure is a space. It's a very safe space, loving, supporting space where they can, it creates an incubator for you to go through that first part of your healing process and finally discover what does it mean to actually love myself through anything. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Okay, so you're working one-on-one, but you also have a group program, or how do I understand that?
So it is a group program that could include private sessions with me and my partner. I have a partner and that's another beautiful story. I mean, when we present ourselves, we said, okay, I'm the healer and the scientist. She's the healer and the fairy. So we bring both, aspects of ourselves into the mix. And so during the program, which is in content, 12 weeks, in reality, it might be 16 because we don't push you through. For each week, you will stay there until you actually accomplish what needs to be accomplished, right? But then as part of the program, you get group healing sessions and private sessions with us. It's a very, comprehensive and intense thing. I'm proud of it, not because I created it, because I didn't, but because I actually showed up for it. I said yes and took the action. Right? But yeah, I'm in awe every time that somebody goes through it and I see the transformation. Being a program is extremely personalized, right? Like everybody has the chance to do their own thing and receive the feedback of exactly what you need to go through your process.
What are typical questions or topics or issues people have who are interested in your program?
Oh my God. So I've had people go through the program in a range of situations, from people that come to me with the very specific sense that I am missing something in my life. Even if from outside it looks like I am an amazing professional and I have everything figured out, I'm not happy. And I don't know why. I want to get out of this. I want to feel good. And so from that point to cancer patients and everything in between, high anxiety, chronic illness and pain, and panic attacks, history of panic attacks, depression. Even there are people that have started my program because they have originally come to me for their kids, which, by the way, is a part of my practice that I adore, working with kids. And sometimes they bring the kids, and the problem is not the kids, it's them. And the kids are just acting out the energy they're bringing, they're creating. And that's how they have realized that they need to do something about it. So I have all those kinds of people coming through. And I always tell people, I don't target conditions. This is about you, not what you are or what's happening with you. It's about, let's put it this way. Remember what I said, I healed and then discovered. That's exactly what I tell my clients. When you go through a process where I don't believe in personalities, I don't believe in categories, I don't believe in conditions. What I believe in is what is inside of you that has created all of those things as reaction to something or protection against something. But that's not you. That's a result of everything you need to heal that is still there. When you learn to shake all of that, then you'll discover who you are. And who you are is never sad, never sick, never stuck, never unhappy.
So the transformational process you're giving people is whatever their status quo is, to become into a person that is happy and healthy. So at the end.
Exactly. And purposeful, just inspired, motivated. I call that being in flow. When you are living your purpose, when there are no problems or challenges, when you understand that you are the co-creator of the world that you live, when you understand that your human or your ego, like a lot of people call it, is not the enemy. It's actually the media your consciousness have to grow, to face challenges, to discover what it is that you need to actually become everything you have the potential to be. That the goal is not surviving and solving problems. The goal is thriving and learning and discovering and expanding and bringing all of that into the world. That's the transformation.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can often see that people who come in with a situation where they really feel depressed or afraid of something, so they are really not in a state where they are motivated, but they feel that something needs to be changed, and then they go through a process like that, and you can't figure out that it's the same person that has been at the beginning. So it's like, yeah, they're really getting to shine and taking action and understanding perhaps the soul path where they have to go, and they're really the being, as you said at the beginning. So this is really huge what you're doing.
Exactly. And a huge part of the program benefits is the fact that you start to understand that you're not an island. You are not meant to do this on your own. Actually, you can't. Nobody can. Nobody can, because we are way too close to our own personal experience not to have blind spots. You need to feel that connection. And through that connection to other people, you need to understand, to experience, what does it mean to be open to receive? Because we are way too focused on wanting to give. What am I giving? What am I putting out there? What am I, am I being good enough at it? And without learning that there is a part of that process that is the opposite direction. You need to be able to receive, and that is serving. Because when you give somebody the opportunity to give you something, you are contributing to their development. And all of that happens in the community. It's a group, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm blown out of my mind a lot of times when I see how this contributes and definitely accelerate the transformation process. Like 3 times, 3-fold compared to what was happening when I started, that I was only doing one-on-one sessions.
Wow, this is so beautiful. If now people are inspired and want to get in contact with you, and you're in Canada, so I'm here now in Madeira, so somehow it perhaps will also work online. So how can people reach out to you? Do you have a website or social media? Can you give us this information, please?
Yes, I have all of that. So the practice I created back in 2017 was called, is called EQUALLIBRIUM. And I have a web site, which is, that's the name, www.equilibrium.ca. There is also a page for the practice in Facebook, and you can find me that way. I have the professional page in Facebook under Yasmilde Balance, and you can find me that way. But the good thing about having a name as weird as mine is that only one other person in the world has it, and she was named after it. So if you Google my name, you'll find me. You'll find me. I'm in LinkedIn, in Facebook, in Instagram is under the Equilibrium practice as well. And through any of those platforms, you can send me a message through the website or the social media platforms.
Yeah, and I will definitely put the links down in the description so that people easily can reach out to you and don't even need to do research, but they find them there. So last but not least, do you have any tips for the audience before we close our conversation?
Definitely. I have 5 of those. So first thing you need to aim for, and I suggest that you do, breathe. Learn what that means for you. I have found that 90% of people hold their breath 90% of the time. We need to reverse that and make it 90% of the time you are having those juicy, long, and deep breaths that allow you to decompress. Breathing is a magic wand, and I definitely talk about it with my clients from the very start. The other one is learn about energy. Learn about what it means to connect and work with your own energy. I'm not talking about the generic, general thing that everything is energy, which is true. But what does that mean for you? What can you do with that? How does that happen? I can guarantee that's a life changer because there are very, very simple techniques that are extremely effective. The other one, just embrace your emotions. We are way too judgmental of them. And here's the kicker. When you embrace your emotions and you understand they are telling you something, emotions are the way energy moves in your body. It's energy in motion. And it's the language your body has to tell you something. When you understand that and you embrace them, the chemistry of emotions in your body and in your head, in your brain, lasts only 90 seconds. But when you do not listen to them, suppress them, ignore them, criticize them, judge them, they can stay there for a lifetime. And you don't want that. You want them to be fluid. So do whatever it takes for you to become, kind towards your emotions. I'll leave it there. 3 that are pretty big. How is that?
Yeah, this is so great. And I have read another sentence in the pre-interview form that I really, I was resonating with. And this was like you were saying, nowadays I feel as I swallowed the sun and I shine accordingly. And we have seen this today in the interview so much. So thank you so much for being my guest and shining on my show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope whoever listens to this takes something to heart and that helped them understand a little bit more their process. But you can always reach me, and I am going to leave with you a link to a gift that they can access. One of the principles that I use in my practice is we need to simultaneously heal your emotions, your mind, and your energy so that you can come out fully shining at the end of it. And I'm going to give you guided visualization, a meditation. It's only 10 minutes long, that helps, guides you through a process where you can fully relax your brain, your mind, and facilitate a decision-making process. I think is very valuable and pretty effective. And so I'll give you those guys. You can follow the link and get the visualization. So enjoy it.
Wow, this is so amazing. Thank you so much also for this gift. This is definitely a great experience for all the people that are listening here. And yeah, thank you again so much for being my guest. Hope to see you soon again. Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.